Entertainment, Antitainment. Antitainment. Is where aesthetics and politics meet. It is the encounter of a chorus girl and a pamphleteer. Antitainment mixes light entertainment, fashion, music, theatre with social critique and political compromise. It's cabaret in its most politically committed form because it breaks all the molds, mixing performance, art, and sexuality. Antitainment is totally against all elites, whether they're financial, academic, or artistic. It interrupts the usual way of things breaking into song in museums and galleries, giving a political speech dressed in sequins. Antitainment resists the limitations of the gallery, goes out into public space representing an ambiguous gender. It criticizes neoliberality and the destructive patriarchal processes which are destroying sexual, biological, and cultural diversity. Antitainment. Good afternoon and welcome to this little talk. I am Graham Del Tornado, the Ponce public face of the Erreria, and this is Anna Maria Staiano Glamoureuse, the mastermind designer of haute couture jewelry and body extensions. We are the Erreria, based in Valencia, Spain, a contemporary collective which supports queer and outsider art. Are we ready for the next video, Glamoureuse? Yes. We stand here before you, as we have stood on so many stages over the years, and tonight we're going to look at a quick tour of them. I'm sorry, but my English is a bit rusty. Chiago, is supposed to be amusing for a man in drag to get on stage. And so you might expect to see me in a cabaret or a theatre. You might even see my kind on TV these days, actually. But that was not always the case. I believe it's of the utmost importance that we sexual dissidents occupy all spaces, so our message is heard not only by other LGBTQ, etc. activists, but by the wider activist community, and yes, even amongst society. Freaky revelation. I feel like transsexual. I want it to be feminist. My body is political. They call me a terrorist. My body is political. We also create our own queer stages and subvert formats which are traditionally associated with mainstream gay culture, organising performative fashion shows. Anna Marie's outre-trash assemblage creations include pelvic brooches, nipple tassels, stomach hairs, wig hats, and even a breast pump set. These, combined with clothes from our extensive wardrobe, satirise the consumer culture the fashion industry thrives on. Anti-models of all shapes, sizes and gender are welcome on our catwalks, although of course we prefer gender benders. Erogenous zones are displaced and multiply in a feminine version of dildo tectonics, where soft and sensual materials replace the hard texture of silicone, normally associated with phallic prosthetics.
Como pueden ver, es un pack de 6 tetas, un homenaje a Rómulo y Remo, que verán, pueden mamar si quieren. Ceci n'est pas une femme.
No lo matéis, una femella y una donna. Y sobre esto con lo que está pasando, si vas a estar lista, cuidado con los cosacos, pues pueden imaginar que te pueden dar por saco.
Hacer el luto dramático por la pérdida del pelo. Y se su humor dramático de los...
Jenny Penny con extensiones corporales, body extensions, tête-à-tête. A trans-feminist dialogue between the body and its symbolic representation, where the voyeur's gaze is returned. A piece about fear and desire. We also organised radical drag workshops and parties. This flaming drag party took place in a grungy social centre on the outskirts, the kind of place where you can host free parties radical dykes and fags on low to no income have access to, which I think is quite important. It was based around a screening of Paris's Burning, and guests formed houses just like in the film for a series of competitions which included doing the limbo, wig wrestling and karaoke. Perhaps the most surprising thing in Paris's Burning are the tests of realness in categories like business or military drag. Of course, if you think about it, what chance would a femme black or Latino kid have of getting a job on Wall Street? The balls allow them to act out roles of economic and political power they can never aspire to hold. The Erreria's Coronation Ceremonies take the simulation of an alternative reality where the underdogs rule to the extreme, inviting our guests to dress as admirals, cardinals, dukes and princesses for a ceremony which normally represents the epitome of the status quo, the investment of state power in a new monarch. We will, of course, be holding our 5th coronation as part of Deep Trash this Saturday. You're all invited to take part and get crowned. In our Nouveau Heritage nation, everybody's part of a dysfunctional royal family.
Todo el mundo podría ser bellísimo.
Todo el mundo podría ser bellísimo. Un mundo que prometo guardar y dar tan sano como lo encuentro, sino más a mis herederos. Y juro que de hoy en adelante no reina el reino de la angustia y el miedo, el reino de la paranoica no crítica del consumismo, y que el futuro sea eternamente sin miedos ajenos. Return à me and rachetais-toi, rachetais-toi, and rachetais-toi, and rachetais-toi, and gin for douche. Oh is the toilet in our house. When we converted it, there used to be an altar there in that little bit. And this video was the second coronation where we kind of switched roles and did a very private ceremony with a great performance artist from London who now lives in America, Doran George, and his boyfriend, Barry Shills, who actually filmed Wakestock, the movie, who very kindly filmed for us. So this was another kind of version of a coronation where we felt that it was important to just kind of subvert the roles of what's usually the symbolism of such an important ceremony for a kind of patriarchal society. So there you go, another rant. Shall we continue? Now, we all know it's fun to be a real queen, but unfortunately for most of us, the day after, it's back to the grim reality. You're an unemployed tranny, and you really haven't got many career prospects. Because basically, the world's cut out with short-term contracts, that's about all you can get, and the beautiful people, most of whom happen to be white, straight men. And since that bloody crisis in 2008, I mean, what was all that about? A bunch of bankers fuck over some poor little people, get massive payoffs, and then the rest of us are supposed to just take it in cuts, and we have wages cut, basic human rights are cut. Did we really fall for that crap? Well, we certainly didn't. In Spain, we had a little revolution. In a faraway time, so far in the future that no one questioned gender equality and human villainy had disappeared. In our multidisciplinary project, Trans-Sex Space Galactic Revolt, we imagined a future universe populated by Amazonian space warriors, ostentatious oligarchs, and gender-bender diplomats. Luxury, power, and right royal corruption are also the themes explored in Laundering, centerfold of Impure, a publication which documents 10 years of Anna Maria's bizarre body creations in collaboration with a host of queer, trans, feminist performers, photographers, writers, and activists. At this point, I have to do a plug, because no one else will. This is Impure, our book. It's available here, and it will also be available in the wonderful Glory, while we were doing the UK presentation on Sunday at 6. You are all, of course, invited. Yes, we're taking advantage of our time in London. So now, where was I? Trans-sex space? Yes, we've gone that. Radical ecology.
My tears fill an ocean. My tears led me to write this. Radical ecology. The structure of power is based on a lack of respect, not solely for those of us who fail to conform to the demands of the dominant power structure, the poor, the mad, women, the transgender queer, but also a lack of respect for the ecosystem that supports us. And as long as we have genetic samples, a few frozen specimens, and some beautiful nature documentary footage of the millions of life forms we've destroyed, it's not important that they no longer actually exist.
This ceremony is a celebration of eccentricity. Men no longer form the center of the universe. The authority of the patriarchal voice has been challenged by trans marica boyo queens and radical drag queens. I mean, what's the point of gays and lesbians being able to get married and join the army in a world that's so polluted, full of poverty, and is in fact a monoculture in every sense of the word? Ironically, really, that those speeches were given at weddings, but then two women marrying each other in a natural element can hardly be called traditional, can it? I'd like to thank Beth Stevens and Annie Sprinkle for inviting and allowing us to participate in their amazing ecosexual weddings, and for converting us in ecosexual ecofeminists. Ecogender was the exhibition that we organised as kind of as a result of meeting them in the house that we have in this small town, Xàtiva, in Spain. This is the town that spawned the Borgia popes, by the way. So it has a kind of very particular feeling, and religious events are very important there. And when we started to do queer and outsider art stuff there, it was really interesting because you open your house to a different audience, but it seemed really important to do that outside of the city. Yeah? So anyway, this is one of the artists talking.
De la idea del típic docel espanyol, valencià, que sempre veig en les cases en Setmana Santa, que n'hi ha una adoració per la religió, per els sants, etc. Pues hem volgut trasladar aquesta idea a lo que és la naturalea, que aquesta devoció també se traslade a lo que són els nostres arbres, el camp.
So, opening the doors of the house, the next logical thing was to take it out in the countryside. So we did a series of installations and a guided tour of the local countryside with these installations and performances with friends like Isa here.
Ovejas, cabras, qué mejor que eso. A besar la naturaleza, a besarla, vamos a ensuciarnos, revolcarnos por el suelo. La suciedad no es mala, la suciedad es bella. Es todo un invento de los que fabrican los detergentes.
The following year we organised 2 conferences on sex, ecology and eco-transfeminism in the universities of Valencia, and these are where my latest trans alter ego geezer bird was born, a shaman travesti who invites people to participate in the creation of new rituals, queer rituals with a contemporary relevance. El papel de chamán travesti transmaricaboyo puta es fundamental en la sociedad actual porque representa el fin del dominio de lo masculino y del patriarcado. Ahora vamos a entrar en la época histérica. Estamos aquí para poner un fin al asesinato de nuestro ecosistema, un fin al robo de terrenos de gente de otras razas, un fin a la explotación de trabajadores en situaciones precarias. Con este ritual histérica vamos a dar un paso simbólico para sanarnos y para sanar el Banco Mundial. Ai grotus artus, rantus orbigni. Coleophora Leucochrysella. Thus I thrust my queer philosophy down the throats of innocent bystanders and people from the invited arts and queer communities. They all end up implicated in these rituals, and somehow it brings them together, strengthening the bonds between them. It may seem naive to invoke the symbolic, to bring about radical changes in society, but I believe that these rituals have the power to affect the collective subconscious and allow us to experiment with new ways of relating to each other. So have I fulfilled my role as an amusing drag puppet? Or am I just an old bore? Well, can politics really be experimental or personal? In light of the current dreadful state of your nation, I'll leave you with our party political broadcast and encourage you all to imagine the possibilities for an ecosexual future based on equality for all and...
Join that eco-party. Make love to your fleas, make love to the bacteria in your colon. Fuck the fashion industry, cause fashion creates demand. Demand and supply.
Supply and demand. Supply and demand.
Stop buying into that cutting-edge mentality. Contradict yourself. Love confusion. Demand and supply. Demand and supply. Are identity politics simply a capitalist smokescreen? Oh, I found a new market. Oh, I found a new market. Stop consuming. Get into my party. Join the Red Eco-Party. Demand an end to the complete destruction of every living ecosystem except the concrete jungle.
And remember, if you don't act now, all the other political parties are just going to carve up the earth and dump us all into a big sewage works. And when the shit explodes, then they and all those other rich fuckers will just hop into their rocket ships and blast off to the moon or the latest fashionable satellite. And all us queer cunts will just be left behind to fry like little baby seals with our heads mashed in. Get into the party. Join the rad eco party. Thank you. I'd like to add one thing, because this video is quite important for us, that we showcase work by other queer artists. All the outfits in that video were done by a friend who's known by the name of Rampova Cabaret, who is an amazing cabaret artist in Valencia, a radical feminist queer artist for many years, who was actually in prison at the age of 14 for being gay under the Franco regime. So it shows you also different contexts in which these queer stages take place. So thank you very much. Thank you to CUNTemporary for having us.